What's going on, everybody? Listen, it was a great day. We're here at the Big Apple Classic, Madison Square Garden, Howard versus Hampton, Virginia State versus Virginia Union. It was a beautiful day for black colleges, but now we're about to go back over and check out some actors, some thespians that's talking about, you know, the struggle to make it into the acting world. So let's check out part 2, The Minority Project. Enjoy.
I think this particular topic also it definitely encompasses a variety of the things that we've said today, and that's competition versus collaboration. Now, before we went live, Brother Phil was saying, you ever have anybody ever experienced going into an audition or an interview, and you see another person, black person there, Latino, and you might like, okay, you might think you might feel good seeing one of us, seeing another one of us, and they're looking at you like, why are you here? Like, you taking my shine, you know what I'm saying? So it becomes competition. Why do we always see each other as competition as opposed to, two heads are generally better than one, so how come we can't collaborate to possibly maybe show this casting director, you thought you wanted one of us, but you actually need two? I mean, just thoughts on that. Competition versus collaboration. Sure.
I know the reason why I helped is because I've experienced really intense competition. I was working in theater here in New York, like in a show, in the dressing room, where bitches, sorry. I mean, no, I'm serious. Like, they will come for you, like no joke. And it's awful. It's an awful way to feel, and then you're working, and you have to perform, and you're experiencing this awful competition. You have a job, or you have a gig. So, I mean, I've experienced it. It sucks. So, any chance you get to help someone, especially someone who's black, and you're at an audition where the receptionist is white and she can care less about where you have to go, because that's what she did to me.
I missed that.
So that's why I helped Erica, because prior to you arriving, I didn't know where to go either, and I had no one there to say, "We'll go this way." So when I saw you struggling, I said, "Well, go help her." It might just give me the gig, that karma. I'm just saying, you never know.
So, all that stuff but I don't think it matters. None of this shit matters what industry. Let's just be real.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't. The competition, all that, the competition, stepping outside yourself to take feedback, that is every industry.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely. In business, you're not going to get promoted if you can't sit in front of your boss and let them tell you what you're doing wrong. If they don't tell you what you're doing wrong, you can't fix it.
Right.
But I think that's where the knowledge comes in, is because, some of us, or we should be aware that as, actors, it, like someone said earlier, it's not all about your talent. It's a job interview. And probably more so than what I'm finding now is it's even less about talent and just, personality.
Yeah, see, I have a problem with that, though.
Can they work with you?
I have a problem with that. And I think that's a general thing that's happening as actors.
You have a problem with what?
With the fact that, so many of us feel like, hey, well, I see so many people that are working and they're not necessarily talented, so, I'm going to focus on the business aspect. And I think that as artists, we do ourselves an injustice where so much of our focus is on just strictly business, and I feel like that is a component to life, and of course you got to make money, we want nice things, and we want to, be able to take care of our families, so on and so forth, because we see that now, especially with like MTV Cribs and all that kind of stuff. We know it's a possibility to make that kind of money, but to give advice to a young actor that's getting into the business, and I'm like, it's business, so you got to get $1,000 headshots, and you got to do this and you got to do that, and I'm like, damn, I didn't even tell him to go read Respect for Acting yet, or to read a book on Stanislavski's method. Like, understand, like, this is a craft, like, that nobody else can do. A doctor has to learn how to use his scalpel, and he has to learn those things. Like, yes, he's a businessman. Yes, he wants to maybe get his own practice, so on and so forth, but he still has to become a doctor. Like, to be an actor, just because you've seen somebody else do it, oh, he's making $1,000 a week, as an extra on a sitcom, or he's doing this and he's not really a good actor. Yeah, that can happen. But at the end of the day, he still has to live with the fact that he's not an actor. If you're an actor, it's like people that can live with that. Yeah, there are. And if you're that person,
no intention,
then that's cool.
And it's something that I guess, like as artists, that we deal with, is because we identify and we're so controlling and overprotective of art. Right. That's not artistic. He's not a real artist. That person doesn't have passion. And the truth is, some people could care less. Honestly, they see Will Smith gets paid $20 million to make a movie, and they're making $60,000 in a cubicle. I'm not going to take that. You know what I mean?
You know what he's saying? I don't think anybody's saying like it's all business.
Right.
Because once you get through that,
Right.
if you can't perform, guess what? Your ass is out.
Yeah.
Like next, on to the next. Like
Next.
because if you can't hold up,
You can't hold
what's
it
the
up.
point in you getting there?
And even
You
the
know what I
best
mean?
actor, though, you see in any industry, even the most creative people, eventually, and it's something I'm learning in my own career now, you need systems in place.
Yeah.
You know,
You need control.
so many of us actors and artists and professionals in the creative field, we fall back on this thing of, oh, I'm gonna just wing it because I have it like that. I'm so like, you know, I work good on my feet. You know, I work well off the top of my head. You know, and you try to put that against someone like me who's gonna spend 3 weeks, 80% of their time rehearsing and performing and practicing, and 20% of their time actually meeting with the client. You can't compete with me. Like, there's no way you can compete with me because I've already looked at 5 different possibilities of what they might say. What that person says, well, what if they ask me this little question? And I'm ready.
And you're making choices.
You know what I mean? And so
So
again,
young actor,
that
you
goes
know
back
what
to
choice is.
technique, though.
You know what I mean?
That goes back to technique that unfortunately, you know, that fine line of saying, well, if you only business or if you're predominantly business and you're not talented, that's its own talent. You know, my mom, you know, was a teacher, and the number one thing that would upset her so much when she looked at the education system is that we qualify such a small percentage of skill as being academic or as being intellectual or as being valued as education. So a guy who can dribble a basketball this, that way, and the other way and guarantee that three-pointer at the buzzer with 1 second, that guy's really smart. You know what I mean? That's its own form of intelligence. But our culture doesn't validate that as a form of intelligence. The guy who can go, you know what, I'm not the most, you know, versed guy in Stanislavski. I don't really like Shakespeare. I'm not the most well-trained, and, you know, that's not really my skill. But if you put me in front of a crowd, I'll wow everyone and make them forget about it.
Right.
You know, that's a skill.
That's a rattle down.
You know what I mean? And that guy who realizes that that's Will Smith's story. You know, there's one movie Will Smith is really good in my view. In my view. Right? There's one movie. And he played, right?
I mean,
He's not.
I mean, not to say about Will Smith. Will Smith is a talented guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he gets more credit than he's due. And I love Will. I love him since I was a kid.
Me too.
But I think as far as like what Phil was relating to as far as what that's concerned is like, you know, it's just that you just had, like you said, you just have that gift of gab as far as like you just have that talent where you just appeal to people. People just draw into your energy. You know what I mean? So.
And that also, he has that famous quote.
That's what it comes down to, too.
He had that very famous quote, and he's like, if you put me on a treadmill, there's 2 options. I'm either gonna win against you or I'm gonna die. But I am not getting off that treadmill. And that's his thing.
And
But I think what
Same with
I think Stephen's point,
yeah,
it's good to have the skill, but it's also good to do the work and prepare and to study. And I find like myself, I respect you more, and I don't know, maybe I'm judging you.
No,
I don't know,
right.
but I respect you more if you study. Because I think that's what we all should be doing.
well, it's like being a teacher.
Yeah.
You get A's, you get B's, or you get G's, whatever, and this person gets A's. You never study and somehow you just happen to be skating by. This student, I know study, I see them in the library. So you get B's and this person get A's. Or maybe you get A's for whatever reason because you just gifted. But this student really works hard and they get B's. I'm going to respect the student that I know studies because they're actually appreciating and respecting the value of an education and not just falling on their laurels that, oh, I'm getting the A's just because it's osmosis. I got this. You see what I'm saying? And that's real. But also, too, when it comes to Hollywood, hey, listen, in the acting, I spent 4 years out in L.A. with the Wayans brothers, with Will Smith's last season, his show, or In the House, Moesha. And at the end of the day, you really can't control if America's going to like you or not. Right. So you go out there, you know, you know your product, you know your brand, you deliver what you can. America may like you, America may not. I mean, it's just that simple, really. They're like, well, maybe I'll like him in his next film. You may not get that opportunity. So it's really, you know, like Eminem had that song, you better lose yourself in that opportunity because you never know when it's going to come back. But unfortunately, you can't control if someone's going to like you. There's some people that, listen, Jada Pinkett thought Will Smith was a cornball. I would never date him. Now she probably can never think about being without him. You see what I'm saying? So it just depends on how people perceive you. And sometimes it's really not what you do. You do what you do because you love it. And if people like it, that's a beautiful thing. If people don't like it, that's unfortunate for them. But you keep doing what you're doing. You know, I never let somebody's opinion of me become my opinion of myself. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. I think a lot of young people have to know that. And when it comes to knowledge, unfortunately, young African American Latino kids, our communities don't render or breed individuals that can bring them that knowledge. Because when we get ours, we don't come back. So yeah, there's some people that can teach you. Okay, my brother, where are they? Where's the person to tell me not to be too hood? Is that person in Hollywood? And forgot about the hood? You know how to learn it? I.e. maybe where you're Caucasian or another ethnic group, maybe they have their uncle was the casting director for Mercy Werner, or used to work with Gary Marshall, and nepotism, and that's something that we don't really have. But I want to say one thing too, because this is important. We go back to it, and I see this on I Like It. You know, it says from Zoe to Hallie to Gabby and Monique, and the image for women of color in TV and film. And I really want to talk specifically and hear from my women. What's your take on just the perception and the imagery of, you know, our sisters in Hollywood? Because for me, it's like, for black folks, if I see 10 black films, I've seen the same 12 people. I can see 10 white films, and I'll see 25,000 new white people. It's like, ours is truly a revolving door with two sides. It's not like we don't even got like 3 different sections. We got one side, you on this side of the door, you on this side. And we'll see you. If you're not on Tuesday, you'll be on Monday. You know, Monday, back on Thursday, you know what I'm saying? And I just want to, you know, get some feedback on that, because I'm a producer. I'm behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. But like I said, I spent 5 years in Hollywood directly, and like people say, she said, it's about the business. When I sat in Wayans Brothers meetings or Fresh Prince, listen, is it funny? I remember watching Marlon Wayans cry, you know, just being frustrated. The first 13 episodes of the Wayans Brothers, every Friday, he's in his trailer, frustrated to tears, because these individuals telling him, it's just not black enough. And if anybody saw the first season of the Wayans Brothers, it was beyond black. It was coonery. You know what I'm saying? By the third season, they had a little bit more bargaining power. See, when you first start out, you know one. Listen, Keenan told them, don't worry about it. Get your $35,000 a week, you're 23 years old, get a second season. Then you can come to the table with a little bit more demands. Right, so then they came back the second season, you know, a little bit more. Now they did well because other shows on the, you know, that show at the network time was kind of crazy, but people appreciated them and liked them, which is the Wayans Brothers. But by the third season, the coonery wasn't as much, and it wasn't because, okay, these guys are starting to appreciate their craft. It's because they have the power and influence to say, okay, what? I'm not dancing a jig every other episode. I'm not doing that. So either, you know, you can give me the $65,000, or you can put me back down to $35,000, but I'm not going to dance a jig. And by the time they got to their 4th season, it was you still saw that slapstick humor that the Wayans Brothers brings, but nothing like the first season. So, that was a little digression from the task, but I definitely want to talk to the sisters. My ladies in Hollywood, what's going on? What do y'all think?
Just to make one point to Elle about competition, I know it's not specific to just acting. I was saying I think the reason why it exists so heavily in our industry is because we're so low. I'm sure it's, you know, across the board. I had a corporate gig for like a minute, and it's there as well, but I think for us, especially for people of color, you know, in general, because there's just one role for like thousands of people, the competition is going to be there, unfortunately. I'm sorry, what's the director's name? Your question?
The women, black women, the image of women.
I'm sorry, yeah. I think maybe I'm delusional, but I think it's changing. I did some work on a soap opera. I have locks. And I know there was a time where that was a no-no. Like, it just wasn't going to happen, period, if you had natural hair. So, I think it's you know, in increments, slowly but surely it is changing. Of course, you're going to see more women of color, you know, lead a film or lead a sitcom or a a show on television in prime time. You know, we want to see that. But I think slowly but surely it is changing.
Yeah, I agree. You're constantly judged, right? Phil John, first day he saw me, he thought I was a biatch. Like,
I'm not gonna lie.
He saw me and he was like, you are stuck up, and I'm the
you know how when you out and you see a female and you like, oh boy.
He just, and it was written on his face. He was just disgusted at my existence.
Wow.
I wasn't disgusted. I wasn't disgusted. I was just like, here comes. Because you know what, I don't know what it means. I don't know when a woman comes in and, you know, she was on her phone and she was like,
I was not, don't lie.
Where's the borders? I'm like, You trying to find like a book? So I'm thinking maybe she was trying to get something from the drama bookstore. I said, what book you look to? You said, what book? She was like, to read. And now
You made.
The point that I was making, the point is
that was cool.
that's your judge, the point is that you're judge, like, I am not African American, I can't tell you that if I wash my hair and I don't straighten it, how many people think I'm Dominican? I'm like, I'm not scared, but my hair is natural, sometimes I straighten it, sometimes I don't, that's just, I don't have a butt, like, I'm a black girl, but I'm 5'7" and I'm just this, you know what I mean? So it's like you're judged, as a woman you're judged, period. In entertainment.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think about the perception now, or do you think that like Monique and Gabby are changing the game? Oh, because when I moved from Zoe to Hallie, I'm like, look, I saw Zoe on the Zoe Saldana on the Golden Globe Award. I'm like, damn, Zoe getting thinner.
Yeah, she's like a two. What is she, a what?
She probably is zero.
Double zero.
Or something, but she looks real
Yeah,
bad. Then the camera pans to Gabby. I'm like, my goodness.
Her street.
Wait, and she still doesn't have an agent.
Bring it back.
Still does not have an agent. She's from white, blonde hair, big boobies.
But I think that's just women in general, like, why does it always have to be about weight? Why? Why does it always have to be about?
Because the business is run by men, and the only thing they wanna see is what they wanna sleep with. And they wanna see something that's, looks a certain way. Remember, men, they take some spot.
But not all men want to sleep with someone that's smaller.
That's true, sure, the guys who are running it, clean up the figures, say what's attractive.
Okay, what about when you usually see, like, take a show like 90210, and usually if there's a black character that comes on that show, and if it's a black female, the black female has to almost look like the white female, but she just happens to be black. So it's like a Bond syndrome.
I haven't seen 90210, so I can't comment on
And
that.
neither can I, because I know if my brother was on 90210, it would have been called Beverly Hills 911.
I mean, well, Tristan is on 90210. He went from The Wire to 90210. Like, Tristan Ross.
Right, and this is my question.
Or
The one
on 90210,
episode
another
that
black girl that played the DJ.
the one episode that I did see with him, right, the one episode that I did see with him, and maybe it has changed, and I'm seeing this a lot more, and I know that there are a lot more biracial couples, so maybe this is why it's happening. But the roles that would have been for women of color are still going to Caucasian women because of the black men that have those roles.
Wait, no. Chandra Wilson on Grey's Anatomy was written for a white woman.
Yeah,
She got that role.
Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what's the guy's name that's on 90210, the young master? Right, he was dating a white girl that was on the show. Now, before, that would have been for a young girl of color. I haven't seen any young women of color, not saying that there
But then
aren't
he dated
any.
another, but then after her, he dated a black girl.
Okay, like I said, that was only the one
yeah.
show. So the one show that I did see, the one show that I did see. But I'm seeing now that the roles that would have been for African Americans are going to non-African Americans when it involves another African American man.
But I think there's a bigger I've been listening for a while. I just think there's a bigger issue at hand that I haven't heard touched upon. Maybe it's implicit or inherent. Maybe we don't know about it. Maybe we don't want to talk about it. But to me, it's something like there's an issue of white supremacy that is kind of
That institutionalized racism.
Yeah, not just racism, but yes, institutionalized racism, white supremacy, the control of non-white life by a white majority, by white culture, by Western people. Because we are in Western culture, but we do not originate from a Western culture. And finding ourselves to do art, to do mathematics, to do engineering, to do business, etc.
Period.
You know, we're still taking on somebody else's culture, and we're still trying to learn something that people have been doing for maybe thousands of years, maybe a couple of hundred years. While we've had the freedom to do it for what, 40, 50, maybe 100? I don't know, slaves were free, what, 150 years ago or something like that? So it's just interesting to me talking about like, I think it's beautiful that Zoe Saldana and Gabby Sidibe is like at the Golden Globe Awards together. I think for me that's, in some ways it signifies, I'm not gonna say something more, but something different and in some ways more important than say even Obama. To have that range at the Golden Globes on television with millions of people across the world seeing that, like, whoa, that's something I never would have thought of either. I know we was pushing for political offices, but to have Zoe Saldana and Gary Sidibe at the same award show for major awards, whoa, that's ridiculous.
But here's my question. It goes back to if America likes you or not. Did Gabby get that, get the Golden Globe or get nominated for the Golden Globe and Oscar because we made that vote happen or because they liked her? I'm just asking. You see what I'm saying? Right. So that's what I'm saying. So since they made it happen, they took the Slim, the Zoe Saldana, we like that, and we like this too.
It goes back to what you were saying before about Scarface, because I thought you were going to say this, and ironically you didn't. I was like, what? How many Cubans do you think are watching Scarface? Like, thank you, Al Pacino. You really look out for accurately portraying our culture and our struggle.
Right.
You know, like honestly, there are so many black people in the hood that think like Cubans act like that.
Right.
Americans that like expect that from a Cuban, and you know, you are like I think Scarface is a great entertainment. You know, so I'll watch it. I had the director's cut, 10th or 20th anniversary or whatever, and you're watching that. And basically there was like one random, like I think he was Puerto Rican, I don't even think he was Cuban, on the set who spoke Spanish, and Pacino would speak to him in Spanish, whatever he thought was the way to speak. And then he would go and do that in the readings for the film.
He was a DP, that was the guy that spoke Spanish to him. And if you want to point on that, how about if I remember back in 2000, they said the same thing about Jeffrey Wright when he played Peoples and Shaft. Because they were like trying to say that he was like, they think all Dominicans act like that. I had a couple of times where every time I go up in the streets of Washington Heights, I get a lot of people say, ¿Cómo está? I said, no, me no República Dominicana, me Mexicano, negrito. And they looked at me like, in shock, because hey, I get a lot of people say I look Dominican, but I'm really Black American at heart here.
We all come along the middle passage. We took on the boat ride, we got dropped off early.
This is the last port.
Exactly.
This is the last port.
So my thing, and that's why I'm an advocate for that, because I want people to understand that if you from South America and through the Caribbean and on the East Coast then you just got dropped off early. And then why are we going to fight one another over a culture that was put on us?
Yes, sir.
Not something that, you know what I'm saying, we put on. So there's no reason for me to be in competition with my Dominican or Puerto Rican or Cuban or Haitian. You know, this should, because technically we're the same, we were just colonized by different European countries.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna let everybody finish, but
Brothers and sisters don't.
that was
You have the knowledge.
this is the perfect lead-in then. Community support for Black and Latinos filmmakers. Where forget filmmakers, actors. Where is our community support for each other?
Hey, it seemed like
Yes, we're here. But once we leave I'm talking about for the masses that unfortunately not blessed to be here today. Where do they find their community support if they don't walk out and see it?
That's what I'm saying, that this is not, first of all, a few things. First of all, we're not doctors, in my opinion. We're not doctors. We're not, the difference between us and doctors.
I'm a doctor of production, brother. What you talking about?
We're not doctors. And I agree with about 80% of what you said. So I'm speaking to 20% I don't agree with. That doctors go to school for 8 years and are guaranteed, pretty much, guaranteed a job when they finish. We can go to school for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years and still have zero guarantee that we'll ever get a job. So they're two different, I understand the comparison, I study the craft, I love the craft, blah, 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 but I do not think they're similar, I do not think they're comparable. I think
It's a metaphor.
I don't think the metaphor works.
Or simile.
I don't think the simile works, the metaphor, whatever you want to call it, you want to throw like in there and make it a simile. I don't think it works. I don't think it works. I think that art is unique. Art is art is subjective, it's artistic. I feel like art can stand on its own as far as what works, what doesn't work, who can learn, who can make it, who shouldn't make it. I think art is its own thing. I don't think we have to, I just find it comes off pompous to me for us to try to uplift ourselves like, well, we're just like doctors, engineers, and scientists. It's like, no, doctors and engineers are scientists, and we're artists, we're actors. So for me, speaking about acting, right, talking about acting, because I've been that hood dude. You know, when I started in the industry 3.5 years ago, that was me, you know, coming in. That's exactly who I was. You know.
I remember.
But at the same time, I was bum rushing audition. I was going into equity audition in the equity building with no equity card.
Yeah.
I remember auditioning for Frost Nixon on Broadway. I didn't know what the F that was, Frost Nixon. I didn't know it was these two white guys on Broadway, two-person. I didn't know nothing about it, but I got in an audition, and they sat there and they watched me perform, and I got seen. And I did that for months until a lady finally stopped me and said, you can't come in here with that equity card. And it was the first black woman at the desk that I ran into. And I said, hey brother, you can't come in here. Where's your equity card? All the other little white people, old white folks that were sitting at the desk would just let me walk through for months. And I got indignant about it. I was irate. What do you mean I can't come in here? I come here every day. I come here all the time. I was like, what? You know what you mean I can't come up in here? I didn't know I needed an equity card until I did Romeo and Juliet, got my equity card, boom, and now I can go to the equity building. But I couldn't, and now I don't even know if I could do that again. There was a certain mentality that I had at that time.
I always would brag about you because here are all these people that are looking at all these different careers in finance and this, that, and the other, and they'll talk out their ass about things that they haven't read. And I know you've read those books because you were a philosophy major.
Right, I'm an actor now. Paris is a photographer,
Yeah.
but I was a philosophy major at Purchase College, and
Yeah.
Paris was an acting conservatory.
Hilarious.
And you hear how articulate Paris speaks. I was the head of the Black Student Union,
Yeah.
and Paris came up underneath me and was the following. I mentored him. He became the next president of the Black Student Union. So now I sit here, smile like a proud dad. Watching
Yeah, right?
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
watching this guy's amazing. Sitting here, I admire you.
And vice versa.
You're
And it's
inspiring.
one of those things that I think, you know, we talked about this a lot, and I learned this from going from the you know, fine art world, and everything was about the craft, and then having this one internship. And I called you, remember that day from the cafeteria where I got this job on Wall Street, and I called them, and I'm like, I don't believe this. I don't believe what I'm seeing. I don't believe that they're kids. Similar to what you say about doctors who, you know, I go to school and I feel lucky to get $200 at the end of the summer for, you know, an acting position. I had this internship on Wall Street, $5,000 living room and board stipend, $10,000 scholarship plus salary. I had no idea that existed in this world. You know, so just the idea that like when everything was said and done, I made as much money in 10 weeks as my mother made as a teacher in a year. Like nothing can psychologically prepare you for that.